Finally, I have found opponents worthy of Kang, my retaliatory strike.
Oh, Kang, Kangest of Kangs. May a negotiated peaceful settlement still be possible?
I am Kang the Conqueror! Conquering is what I do, and I intend to do it!
Cosmo has assembled manifest for avenging God.
Sorry, Cosmo. You're breaking up. That's odd.
Interesting reading. It looks like there's huge EMP potential on board.
EMP? Electromagnetic pulse. Set that baby off, we bring down the Citadel shields.
And Cosmo finally get to meet the pretty lady.
We've conducted analysis on the Nexus shards.
We can amalgamate the fragments, but Knowhere will end up creating a massive energy footprint and wipe out the mansion.
The answer's simple. We create a channeling device to raise the footprint high above the mansion.
And we'll need Strange's help to create the portal to allow Knowhere through.
Sounds like we need to prep up.
What could possibly go wrong?
So, Hank, we all good to go for our new
Jesus
science
Christ.
project?
Yep, I've taken everything up to the roof.
Apparently Hunter wants to
With a
call,
little help from the
so
Hulk.
shall we go towards
Now,
the group
we
call?
just need to put it all together.
I have
Be
to head
careful
out.
up there, you two. The last thing we
Fair
need
enough.
is someone falling
Have a
off
good
the
one.
roof and ending up in a cast again.
Thank you.
Boop.
Beep boop. I'm back in this shit all over again. Last 3 missions.
Though, because you sound very enthusiastic.
Yeah, I just wanted to do it over with.
Yeah, fair one. I could understand.
Like, there is a reason why there was such
Bet
a
you're glad to be
massive
back in
gap
action,
between
huh,
the fucking
Tony?
me playing this
There's only
game
so many
originally and
Sudoku
now.
puzzles a guy can do before he goes crazy. Now, let's
And I had only
build
done
some
like about
stuff.
1 level originally, and I already like during the 2nd level just stopped playing.
You seen that superhero supply
Yeah.
store?
Then it took more than a year to come back to it. I did about half of the game, or just before half,
You'll learn to tune it out. Ha!
and then I stopped again. And then half a year later, now I'm actually finishing the game.
Don't think I care.
And then you'll never fucking never touch it again.
No, I still need to 100% it afterwards.
Oh, god damn it, Riddle. No, you don't. don't do this to yourself.
No, but then I can just play with the audio off. And I can do all the levels in free play at that point, which is means I can just play whatever character. So I can just create a character myself and just go through everything.
But that means you don't get to play with all the fun superheroes. You like those.
You're forced to play with them anyway to do everything.
Yeah.
But they at least give you
I
the
only
entire
put this
list,
thing
and
together
I
an
can
hour
just,
ago. How did it break already?
you know,
Oh yeah.
not deal
You
with
know when I
all of them
said I got
separately.
Hulk to help me carry the stuff up
But I
here?
don't have to.
Yeah,
do,
fair
I don't
enough.
have to do the story
no
shit
more.
anymore.
Yeah. In other
See?
news, I
The
have
damage
now
wasn't
finished
so
the
bad.
prologue of my story.
Fixed in no time.
No idea.
Holy
Just
fuck!
And
smash 'em all.
as it's
Janitor
now
will
finished, it's
sweep
8
up the
pages long, by the way.
There. Good as new.
It's probably the most. It's probably the most intense prologue I've ever written.
Somewhere.
Because I just did that whole end thing where, you know, the whatever the fuck kind of creatures they come up against, actually find them. And it's I had fun writing this, not gonna lie. It's like it's good to get back into the kind of horror theme a little bit. So the one thing I really enjoyed about the older Cyrus stories when we started leaning into that a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough.
And obviously, you know, now I'm writing it from the perspective of someone that's trying to remember, but doesn't like remember the details, so that makes it like very interesting to write. Because you can kind of play around with, you know, inaccurate memories, because that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Like, Duncan remembers this, but doesn't like remember the entirety of it, and you know isn't, you know, probably not really remember it correctly due to trauma and not realizing what it was he was looking at.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
There.
because I'll
Perfect
be.
condition.
I think I'll send you this one because I want to send you stuff as I complete it. So once you know,
Hope you remember
you
how
only
to put
see
that
chapter
thing
1 by
together.
the time it's actually, you know, completely wrapped up.
That's fair
One
enough.
part at a time. But I definitely want to get your opinion on this, considering
that's
that
not
you're,
right.
you're now, you know,
There's a
doing
piece
your own
missing.
writing as well.
Well, it can't have gone far.
able to get some more constructive feedback, because that's the one thing I don't really get from Josie. You know, she's not that creative a writer herself, so whenever I send her anything, she's like, yep, that's fucking amazing. It's like, yeah, but it's probably, I mean, it's probably good, right? But I want some actual feedback, because I still want to improve.
Yeah, fair.
So, yeah. I've also, not really say made my mind up, but I've been doing more thinking about where the story is going. And just add a little bit more nuance to it. So I established earlier that I was going to have Duncan likely join the Syndicate later down the line. And I've now decided that, yeah, I'm definitely gonna go full in on that. In fact, I'm gonna like change up the Syndicate a little bit, add more to it. Basically making the organization more realistic and figuring out why it is the way it is, what it does, how it achieves what it does. And really make that insider knowledge that we get through Duncan, you know, worth something. Having, you know, an actual like perspective from their point of view. And one thing that I've now established that what the Syndicate really is after is because they're working together with the Order, but they don't fully really trust the Order at all. And there's this, obviously the Order's chasing after this magical anomaly that they want to achieve, because they want to basically, you know, become living gods at this point. And the Syndicate, you know, so far, you know, their relationship has been mutually beneficial, but it's slowly starting, you know, the Syndicate slowly starting to realize that, you know, they are being used. And the Syndicate is a powerful enough organization that, you know, they can probably, you know, make life very difficult for the Order. Like, if they want, they're a bad enemy to have, basically. Because this is an organization that's basically very much, you know, on top of the world at the moment. They control a lot of things. They've got a lot of influence. You cannot escape the Syndicate. They will find you. They've got agents everywhere. And what the Syndicate now is really after, for the most part, is, well, I wouldn't say more control, more power, because they're kind of already on top of the world, like I just said. But I'm kind of blending the Syndicate that we have now with an organization like the SCP Foundation, where they're trying to research magic and, you know, contain it to some degree. Because obviously in the real world, we don't really know about magic, you know, being a real thing. And in this make-believe world, you know, normal people still don't know if that magic's a real thing, but that's only really because organizations like the Syndicate do their level best to contain it and stop it from spreading. It's kind of like, you know, whenever like a dangerous magical anomaly is discovered, the Syndicate will go after it, lock it away forever, study it, and make sure it can never harm anyone. You can kind of say that their intentions are in some way noble. Of course, it doesn't help that they abuse the shit out of it later, especially when Carter takes the helm. Because they are also still definitely the Syndicate in which we know that they are mostly a criminal organization. And I say mostly because, you know, like I said, they are doing this, but they're doing this kind of off the record. It's almost like a side gig. And almost kind of just a way just to kind of fuck with the Order a bit. Because this is, you know, the Order's main thing. This is kind of like the way that they're getting back at them. But the primary source of their income is obviously like massive businesses. So think, you know, big ass casinos, hotels, you know, fucking corporate chains or whatever. They might even have a fucking game dev company I'll throw in for shits and figgles. And obviously those corporations are definitely not run in any sort of legal way. And Duncan's going to become, you know, part of this organization, because obviously he'll be inducted as a field agent initially because of his commanding officer. Obviously the commanding officer, you know, links Duncan's story for what he's seen in Iraq to what's going on with the Order, and figures, you know, you're probably better off at this college for a little bit. But he kind of has to bullshit his way around it. So he tells Duncan, obviously, hey, yeah, you need some time off. Go finish up your studies over there, and then, you know, we'll find another place for you back at the army here. By the time you've done that, you'll set your mind up a little bit. And Duncan goes, yeah, I need a break, so I'll go. Not knowing he's really completely being set up, because, you know, when he starts seeing all that weird magical shit and starts kind of second guessing himself. Eventually, he'll talk to it, or at least his CEO will kind of, wink at Duncan, and he's like, well, trust me, we know. And Duncan, will kind of raise an eyebrow going, wait, you know about this? You knew about this and you sent me there? Which is when, the CEO will spill the beans, because Duncan is not really being tricked. That's not the way that, the CEO and the syndicate is really, looking at the situation. They just wanted him to see it with his own eyes, to convince him that, what they're doing is the right thing. And what they're doing is playing along with the order and basically, using the Osiris characters as, sacrificial lambs to see, what will happen.
You remember Knowhere having a mustache?
So Duncan kind of, he's not, I wouldn't say like he's, a villain at that point, but kind of, because he's actively at some point in the story, he is, back to the old school, infiltrator that we know him as, kind of, not on the same team as the rest of the guys. And they only really work together at the end because of the wildcard errors that's kind of playing all sides. So they do have a mutual enemy. That's really the only reason as to why Duncan ends up actually working with them. He is fully dedicated to the syndicate at the end of the story, basically, which is a severe deviation from the original idea anyway. But I found this was more interesting. This one thing I'll also look into is obviously his relationship with Robin. It's gonna be very, very interesting and central to the plot. It's in the first story, in the second story, and maybe in the third. Not sure if.
Okay, Tony.
It'll depend on how things go in the second, because that's kind of where the relationship will either, live or die.
Yeah, fair.
I'm thinking it'll, they'll at least both be alive in the second story, or at the in the third story, so they'll both survive the second. But I'm not sure that how they'll be, if they'll even be on talking terms anymore, because the syndicate obviously, they're researching magical anomalies, and their primary enemy is Ares, and they just so happen to have a carbon copy of Ares walking about in the shape of Robin. Robin, who completely trusts Duncan at this point, kind of walks into the syndicate trap and ends up becoming captured by them and being one of their subjects, basically. One of their test subjects, locked away in the cell forever to be experimented on and basically tortured, so that the syndicate can find out any piece of useful information they can possibly find to face off against Ares. And for Duncan, this is a very difficult thing to do, because he does genuinely care about her. It's not like he's just sacrificing her for the greater good and doesn't really think twice about it. Now this fucks him up a little bit, but he knows he has to do it. This is a sacrifice he has to make, otherwise, because if Ares completes her plan, the entire fucking world's fucked. But it's not something he feels good about, for sure. And by the end of this, obviously, Duncan is going to leave the syndicate. He'll see that the organization that he was promised, the one he joined, is deviating from its original course, likely to do with Philippe's leaving the company. Because I imagine that Philippe is actually going to be the reason Robin gets out in the first place. That is his daughter after all, and eventually he's just gonna snap and not want to do this anymore.
Fair.
So he basically breaks her out. Duncan might play a role in this. Honestly, I think there might be a dual team there. But it'll be difficult for Robin to kind of forgive what happened. So it's really going to come down on just how severe the treatment of her is there. Because there's a lot of other characters I'm gonna play a role there, and they might. Because I don't want the syndicate, even in this stage, to just be this evil organization. The characters that are in there, the scientists, the researchers, while they're doing arguably horrible, despicable shit, they're doing it because they kind of have to. They're not like evil, twisted, people. They've got their own reasons and they've got their own beliefs. I mean, the syndicate is definitely going to go down a dark fucking train when Carter gets involved. But we're not there yet. Right now, the syndicate still has hope, but it is slowly fading. By this point, obviously the assassins will have an entire arc by themselves, basically fighting the syndicate. And this will be primarily Carter and everyone else. This will be the story, obviously, where he gets very attached to Amy and everything. which will probably happen halfway through the story, because in the first half, obviously, he's still grieving over Sophia. It'll take a bit of time for him to really get over that, and for him to even be willing to try again with someone. And he'll never really let go of Sophia, honestly. In fact, I think even near the end, when he's gone completely crazy, he's obviously, he'll grieve over Amy too, but I think Sophia hurts him the most. Still. It's not that Amy didn't mean anything to him, but, yeah. Just, the original kind of hurt more.
Yeah, the second time he's already experienced it.
Yeah, he's kind of used to how to deal with these feelings, so it's easier for him the second time around. But yeah, so we'll have that, obviously. Then the Syndicate characters, some of them, I'm gonna bring a bunch of classics back. I'm gonna bring a bunch of new characters in as well that I feel will do pretty well. A lot of these characters are borrowed from other projects I've worked on, and I feel that they would do really well in this environment. Kind of want to see give them a shake of the stick. So I'm kind of curious to see how that'll go. And as far as that goes, let's see, anything else story-wise? Oh yeah, I made Slusher a character. For shits and figgles. Because I was talking to him earlier and he's like, oh, you should make me a character. It's like, yeah, sure, why the fuck no, that'd be hilarious. So we got our favorite medic in.
Well,
who's going to be one of the I mean, yeah, he's my favorite medic, yeah, because the other medics in the unit I don't really care about. Fodi's not there, otherwise he would have been my favorite.
Yeah, we need Fodi.
Yeah, we need him to kind of keep Slusher's bullshit in check, honestly. But
yeah.
Whatever. But whatever. So I've got Slusher, and he's just basically going to be a background character more than anything else. One of Duncan's, military friends. Someone that he did his basic training with and whatever before he went to go fly gunships. And they're gonna realize that because obviously the story takes place in Nevada, not that far out of the region, and they'll have Las Vegas, relatively nearby, and they've got this massive airbase there, which will have a bunch of characters. Obviously the military CO will be stationed there, Slush will be stationed there, and every so often, Duncan does have to report in with them, so you run into those guys there, and sometimes, because we are playing this from Duncan's perspective for the most part. I have now decided to put other character perspectives in there every now and again. But because we're playing from his perspective for the most part, obviously, Duncan's not going to lock himself away at that school forever. He's going to want to go out and just, relax with his friends, which will include people like Slush with Gunner from the prologue.
Point them at each other?
Fair enough.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to oversimplify it. I mean,
and we'll use moments like that from when Duncan's, away from the base. We'll have another perspective run from the schools, from one of the Osiris characters probably.
Wouldn't be as much fun if they did.
I'm not gonna say that Duncan is this really well-trained spy as he usually used to be, meaning that no one assumes that he was an infiltrator to begin with. They're definitely gonna suspect him this time around, because he's not a trained spy. He's a trained pilot and a soldier, but he's never done any real infiltrating work. This is gonna completely noodle him at this point. So he's gonna not be perfect at it. He's gonna leave some suspicions around.
Yeah, fair.
And obviously by the end of the story, when the assassins come, they'll connect the dots with him being Syndicate, and at that point everyone knows. But because they've got this common enemy right now, all three parties basically combine. So we've got Duncan and the Syndicate, we've got the assassins and Miss Rossini, and then the Osiris boys, all basically teaming up against the Order and against Eris at the moment. But after that, all gloves are off. Now they all know. One other thing I'm going to write in is if I need to find a way to explain this But Duncan's flying days are practically over when the first chapter hits. He'll have a conversation with his CO later,
Okay, Tony. They're
you know,
late.
explaining it,
You
like,
should be
hey,
good to
dude,
go.
your flying career is done.
Now we
Even
just
his
need to-
gunner's flying
Wait,
career
what?
would have been done,
Where
but
did the
the
power
Air
go?
Force stepped in,
We've
luckily.
lost power team 2. We'll need
Because
you to get
she's
back
going
up
to be a
again.
recurring character.
Of course.
But
However,
basically,
the
you know, what's
scoundrels have
happening
destroyed most of the
is obviously in
equipment.
the prologue, you know, that one they get shot down and they're both, you know, severely hurt. The gunner is more hurt than
team.
Duncan is,
Look
but you know,
around
he's
for a
not
way to restore the
in
power.
proper shape.
Sure thing,
And by
Cap.
the end of it, he's
Let's do
basically
this.
assaulted by this, you know, dark creature from the void, which kind of warps his mind a bit. And when he, you know, gets back to base, you know, you can anyone there that doesn't have any sort of context about what he saw, you know, they're gonna listen to him basically talk gibberish. And, you know, he's gonna sound like he's completely lost his mind. So, yeah, they're like, okay, yeah, we're not trusting you to go flying again. You know, you need to get yourself, you know, checked into a fucking psych ward. Holy hell. So his career basically gets sidelined. Which opens up another, you know, I'm basically doing this so I can have an excuse for Duncan not to chase his dreams anymore and really just dedicate himself to the Syndicate to kind of become, you know, one of their, you know, most feared
Puppets.
operatives. You know, he's gonna be, you know, a fucking, you know, he's basically a super spy, super agent for them. And I felt that, you know, pretty much, but I felt that pretty much, you know, they'll be much more impactful, obviously, if Duncan's on the ground doing these things, as opposed to just being a cunt in the air, looking down at the action. The action scenes, and they'll be a lot more up close and personal, a lot more impactful if he's actually down on the ground when it happens, playing a role in it.
I suppose there are aspects to living amongst
Fair.
mortals that I still fail
And now
to
we've got a
grasp.
decent excuse as to why he's doing that, and you know why he never actually goes back to the Air Force or to the Army, because gunships are Army. I always caught me off guard initially. I have to keep reminding myself that helicopters are not actually the Air Force. It took me a while to realize that. I always thought they would be, but no, they are just the Army. Fixed-wing jets, that's the Air Force. And those organizations, because I always kind of assumed they would all kind of really work together. But the Navy, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, they are all separate organizations. They don't really like to play ball. Which I find kind of hilarious when I think about it.
Yeah, they like to just do their own shit.
Yeah. Which is what ends up, you know, saving the career of Anta's gunner. Because, you know, she's, you know, she's physically more hurt, but she'll recover from that. And mentally, she hasn't seen really what Duncan saw. So she's fine on that department. And because they're both basically war heroes, you know, with the second that the Air Force gathered that the Army was basically letting them go, they figured it would be a really good, you know, morale boost and PR stunt if they could get one of those, you know, legendary pilots with them instead. So, you know, the gunner is actually gonna go fly A-10s with the Air Force now. And we'll have her around still. Obviously, you know, we're not gonna have an A-10 gunship be actively involved in the story. That'll be a bit overkill. Take that, Syndicate. I'll tell you a very short story. But, you know, she'll at least play a role. She'll be kind of there as a supporting character for Duncan. You know, they are still very close. They are still friends. But as far as playing an active role in the story's development, that at least in the first story, that's a no. The second and third story, you know, when politically the game becomes more involved, and you know we've got more armed conflicts arriving around the world because the world is slowly starting to go to shit because of, you know, the Order's doings. Then yeah, we might see the Army, you know, actively play a role, and we might even, you know, have to come to blows with them on
It
occasion.
appears to be working. Tony, couldn't Thor
Well, that'll
just
be
zap the power
pretty
into it?
interesting.
Afraid not.
That'll get. I mean, at some point, I don't know where, I don't know how, but I've already decided I am going to have Carter's character punch Slusher straight in the face. I don't know how I'm gonna do this or when or why, but it's going to happen. Just for shits and giggles.
Hopefully with a stick.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta, you know, Slusher's gonna fucking feel it. And I don't want to say I'm doing this just out of spite, but I'm doing this just out of spite.
You should hit him with a stick with 3 legs, which you mount a gun on.
Yeah. I've dove into the big mystery, at least to some degree, because every Osiris had to have a big mystery. And obviously there's a lot of mystery in this one, but there needs to be one underlying big thing that kind of is kind of like the skeleton of the whole, the whole mystery of what the Order's after, how they're going to accomplish this, and just add need more depth to the whole story to begin with. I've decided that what I wanted earlier is as long when the Order, the Warlocks, basically start to unravel their plan, the world's gonna become progressively colder, to the point that eventually like a new ice age is upon us. The dark winter is here. Winter is coming. Yeah.
Oh God.
And I've combined this with the creatures that they spot in the prologue, because one detail that I put into the prologue that's kind of layered. So I've hinted at it earlier in the prologue, and then suddenly it connects with Duncan, like he understands it. Because obviously they've been shot at. They've the gunner, she especially, is very hurt. She's on the verge of death basically. And they're running through this dust storm in the scorching desert. And at this point, I think Duncan did spot and shoot at one of those dark figures, which didn't like go down; it just vanished. But Duncan did like really register that; he just kept going. And at some point, the gunner kind of goes, "It's getting colder," which Duncan kind of writes off as her, slowly fading from life, because that's what they always say when you're dying. Oh, it's getting cold. But no, it was genuinely getting colder, because a few moments later, the more of those things show up. Duncan takes a knee, gets ready to fire, and he sees his own breath. He's like, wait a minute, it is actually getting colder. And at first he kind of checks like his own body. He's like, am I hurt? Am I dying? He still doesn't really register this, because this is not something that just happens in the middle of the desert. It doesn't just suddenly start freezing. And if you're like a normal person in everyday life, you're not just going to suspect, paranormal activity right away. We're not really playing Phasmophobia, obviously. He's not got his journal out thinking, yep, that's one. That's one piece of evidence right there.
He should.
But, he's gonna, and then he'll notice that, it's these creatures basically that emanate this bitter, biting, awful cold, as if it's, they are cold themselves. They are just the eternal bringers of fucking freezers, basically. They just start a company, honestly. They'd be great at that. And what I've now decided on, this will play hand in hand with the mirror scene, with the visions, with this power source for the Warlocks, and the background of the Warlocks to begin with, because they are already pretty much very powerful super beings that have lived for way too long. And it plays hand in hand with the Egyptian and Norse and whatever gods. Basically the gods, that's what they're going to be described as, the elder gods. They're not really going to really specify exactly which gods they're dealing with, because they're, spoiler alert, they are all the same god. It's just that us humans are back in the day, because those gods, the same gods, appeared in different regions. Those different regions, they were not in contact with each other. Cell phones really weren't a thing back in ancient Egypt, so they all named them differently. But they were the same beings, which is when they disappeared at the same time. Yeah, funny that. But they all drew their power from the same place, which is now the same place the Order is trying to get back to. The problem is that this place doesn't like being fucked around with, and the Order wants to get to this place, and this place is like, no, we're gonna come to you, because and I think the mirror scene is the biggest early on hint about the nature of this place, because this is basically almost, I picture it as like a second dimension, but not really a different planet. It is the same planet, but different. As if you were looking through a mirror, but this planet, this other dimension of Earth, which will be called Limbo, call sign Limbo basically, will be completely frozen over. And this is the home of those dark creatures. And they completely ruled this place. And that used to be the home of the elder gods. And they're not there anymore. Because those dark fucking things have basically taken over and wiped out all life. The Order wants to get to that place and find the source of that magic that's still there. But in doing so, they're gonna merge the two dimensions, basically. Meaning those creatures are gonna start roaming the earth, and they will bring the eternal winter with them. Whoopsie. That's a problem. You don't want to be doing that. But the Order's doing it anyway, because they're power-hungry idiots. Oh well.
Just power-hungry idiots?
Yeah, pretty much. But after some point, because they do need to kind of unlock this, Duncan will kind of unlock this by accident because he's already come into contact with you know, these beings. But if he then if the chosen people basically interact with certain mirrors, those are not normal mirrors. Those are direct mirrors into Limbo. So when he touches that mirror, you know, it can't really comprehend the connection between those two dimensions yet because there's no pure connection yet. So the mirror kind of basically blows the fuck up because it can't, you know, compute it basically. And everyone in the room, you know, they are also connected to this. They just don't know yet. And they get hit by this vision, meaning from then on, they are properly connected. But this only happens on like certain mirrors, and they need to be magically imbued. So these are, you know, the mirrors that the Order uses to kind of spy on them. So, and that one mirror in Osiris, that one went up. So that one's not there, meaning that the Order now lost their eyes into the house, meaning that Sophia is now their only, you know, eyes and ears in Osiris, which will kind of make her, kind of force her to do more work as an infiltrator, which will eventually lead into her making mistakes and getting discovered. Originally, she was just supposed to be an observer and not really meddle in affairs, but because the mirror was suddenly no longer an option, you know, they had to resort to more drastic measures, which is gonna bite Sophia in the ass.
It's getting hard to focus.
Which, you know, will be part of the reason as to why she's discovered. And another reason as to why she's ultimately killed obviously also plays a role with obviously her role as an infiltrator for the Order, is that she was also working directly for Eris, and Eris has not really had the time to talk to, you know, Sophia about the betrayal, because that would kind of expose her too, and her, you know, actual like identity and role was only really discovered at the end of the story. So when they finally meet in that ruin, you know, Eris does get the chance to kind of, you know, get back at Sophia for basically betraying her, which is why she's so brutally killed. Obviously, you know, Carter and everyone else, they're not gonna see it, you know, as justified in the slightest, but in a way it is. It's not the right thing to do, mind you, but she does have her reasons. She's not just doing it for shits and giggles, you know, she's genuinely pissed and feels genuinely betrayed. Because she was, let's be honest.
Deserved.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would kind of betray the, you know, psycho goddess too, honestly, but yeah, it's, I mean, honestly, if you piss off the psycho goddess, that, I don't know what you're expecting, but, you know, getting ripped apart by change, you know, is probably one of the options. This also kind of does explain as to why, you know, she's so brutal in the way that she kills Sophia. Normally, you know, if you want someone dead, you just kill them quickly, get it over with. But if you really hate someone, yeah, you're gonna kind of enjoy it a little bit. And if you happen to have those insane fucking powers, and yeah, you're gonna use them. And for anyone else, it's, you know, the most awful thing.
Yep.
Especially for Carter, because he's right there, and he can't do anything about it.
Yep.
And this is also going to cause a giant fucking enormous rift between himself and Duncan, by the way. Because remember, Duncan's basically dating her twin. At that time. He's, you know, not really dating because she's not technically, you know, physically present at the time. But she'll show up obviously later in that ruined run, and she's a carbon copy of Eris, just with slight differences. Carter is never ever going to get along with Robin because, you know, they're not even really twins. They are the same person, just two different consciousness. You know, they are basically two replicas of the same person. So on the different context, you know, Robin would have likely done the same thing.